Hey everybody, this is Allison from AllyKatzkreations. How are you? I'm a little sidekick show. Morgan. She hears all the geese flying about. Oahspe. We're going to continue on with Cosmogony and Prophecy. Before I go into that, hi, please hit that thumbs up button. That would greatly help me out. Slowly, the channel's starting to pick up. And I want to be able to do lives with people. We can discuss fun things. But in all seriousness, thank you everybody for hitting the like button, for subscribing and sharing my work. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me. This is going to be a very rough month. I just cleared February's bills. Just cleared them. My property tax, on the other hand, couldn't pay. April should be very interesting, which is lingering on. Car, I'm now past my inspection date because I need a lot of money to fix the car. Yeah, so fun. Great. So I want to just say thank you to everybody who has been supporting me and helping me out. Anything helps at this point. I don't like to get emotional because it's very heartwarming and just glowy mushy inside of me when people send me anything. And I thank you so much for doing so. You're keeping the internet on, you're keeping me within my purpose. And I thank you so much for doing so. Otherwise, I don't know how not having much success selling things either. And I'm not overpricing anything. People are weird. So yeah, I just wanted to thank and give out a shout out to everybody who's been helping me. And we're going to get into it. So I know the beginning of this book of Cosmogony and Prophecy was not easy to understand. It has a lot of scientific-y stuff in here. A lot of concepts we're not used to hearing in like Old English. So just mind you, I find it fun. It's stuff we're going to have to learn about anyway. So we're going to start on chapter 5. In the transportation of needles of Kapoor from parallel polarity to mixed or transverse positions, we are produced of all kinds of colors. It's my favorite. It is an error to say wave of light or bent ray of light, or that a given number of vibration or undulations produce different kinds of colors. There is neither wave nor undulation, in fact. Needles are arbitrary and cannot be bent. Compare a needle to a transparent glass crystal. Place a given number of these end to end, touching and in a line. To bend this line is impossible, save at angles. For wherever two ends join, there will be an angle. Be the needles ever so short, There will be no bend, in fact, but a succession of arbitrary lines and elbows. Such is not, however, the juxtaposition, save when they are in a line direct. Otherwise, the ends of the needles do not bend like joints, but each one turneth more or less on its own axis. If they all turn, an apparent wave is produced, expressive of a certain color. If part of them turn, another color is produced. In proportion to this disturbance, so are the apparent vibrations slow or fast as to mortal observation. In regions of the Earth's atmosphere where they have cyclones, reddish lights appear in the firmament, even before the cyclone manifesteth on the Earth. And these lights travel with the cyclone, manifesting great heat on the Earth. In the regions of monsoons, a similar manifestation occurreth, but generally with pink or blush lights instead of red. If over the ocean, but if over the land, a smoky atmosphere resulteth. These colors and others manifested in atmospheria are not confined to the Earth's stratum, but they extend even to the outer extreme of the Earth's vortex. And in many instances, they are so altitudinous that they manifest, their manifestations are imperceptible to mortal observation, save that, for example, the moon or the sun shineth less brightly. When one of these transpositions is dark and is high up in the atmosphere, at night they say the moon is surrounded by a haze. And yet, the while the atmospheric stratum next the Earth may be clear. The Earth's vortex hath millions of these strata and various colors, shades, and tints. In taking photographs of the moon or the sun, these often interpose, and the picture taken deceiveth the observer, that he made a picture of oxygen or hydrogen of the planet's atmosphere. The same state of affairs belongs to also in the sun's vortex, so that with these clouds of color intervening in etheria, the telescope encountereth much travail. As the vortex groweth older, these disturbances, together with imperfect solutions of Kapoor, become less frequent. So also in the early age of a vortex, they are more frequent and of longer duration, so that at times a red light or blue light or other color will overspread the Earth for periods of 1,000 or more years without interruption, and in some cases, darkness for as long as a period. Wherever living things, as herbs and trees, grasses, and so on, were quickened into life during darkness, were without eyes. Nevertheless, in this day, even these things turn toward the light, as plants and flowers placed in a window will manifest. Where Samu was quickened into life in lighter times, it focalized toward the light, and this focus was called an eye. Interesting. And such as were thus quickened into life and not attached to the earth by fibers or roots were called animals. And the life they inherited gave power unto them to go about from place to place. So great are the powers of the eyes of some animals that they can see and distinguish in darkness of nights. Such eyes are absorbents and vortexia, and they shine in the dark. Hence, the first organs of sense created in any animal were the eyes, whereof it hath been said, the eye is the seed of the tree of knowledge. The sight of the eye is the beginning of self-creation. In acquiring knowledge, and it doeth by going forth and staying at home at the same time. The sight of the eye is a miniature sun, sending forth and receiving vortexian power at the same time, as may be proved by looking on the eyelids of a person sleeping, who will wake because thereof. Since then, the eye of man can go forth with intelligent power controlling things. It hath been concluded since thousands of years by the wisest philosophers that an all-seeing eye is the cause and creator of the whole universe, which is his person. Note the one eye. Cyclops. No, right? They inverted that. They stole that. And if you don't know who they is, look around the world and look for pictures that I just did. Go look to see what stars do that. They're what's wrong with society. They're the corrupted. They're the inversions. Oh, yeah. They bow to another master. Yep. Just putting that one out there. Had to. And the first quickening of eyes. Oh, now we get plural. They partook of the color of the vortexian lights at the time. And even so, at the same period of time, were colored the skins of mortals. I would hope so. And according to their surroundings, some light, some dark, and some red or yellow or coppered color. Well, well, well. I'm silent because there's so much I would like to say, but I cannot say it. But we weren't all originally one color. Just like a frog with different colors for camouflage, there were many different colors of humans. Depending where you lived. Depending how much the sun shone. And all of them propagated after their own kind. That's a problem. And do so to this day. And though the okay, so if we're getting into like people color, I find I'm going to read what the book says, but I don't agree with the wording it's saying. And I will never say words that would offend anybody because it offends me. by even having to read it. It's for all colors, okay? It's not just for the one or the other. It's for all of them, because we're not crayons. I might appear very white on screen, but I'm peach, pale peach, with brown spots, because I have a lot of brown freckles. I am freckled all over the place. And I know with the lights it's hard. See, I'm freckly. And it's winter here still. We're not in spring yet, but even still, I fade out. And then when the sun comes, I am like a blistering freckle face insanity. And I hide that because I don't know. I don't like my freckles that much. Not because I don't think they're beautiful. They're just oddly placed on my body. So wherever the sun hits, that's where I freckle. So I don't really go to the beach because New York water's gross. I mean, it's nice to sit on the beach, but I can't go to the pool because I'm allergic to chlorine. So I really don't go out. And then I have this on my, mop on my head, which is Sun Central. And then I look like I have psoriasis on my scalp. It's bad. Anyway, just putting that out there. I'm not a fan of saying what I'm about to say. I don't like it. But for the integrity of the book, I will. And though the Blacks might live for thousands of generations with themselves only, in any country in the world, they would never become white. See what I'm talking about? I don't like that because I don't believe that. And the same rule applies to whites and browns and all the races of men. While I understand the viewpoint of where this is coming from, and yes, back all the way then, when you are not with boat that can go for long distances and you're in Norway, you would not ever see a person of color unless they walked to Norway. And this is like way before boats. And I mean, I'm sure boats existed, but the boats to get all the way around and go up, okay. You're not seeing a person of color up there because there's barely, I mean, there is sun, but barely any of it. And it's all winter and cold. Okay, I'm from Ireland. You're gonna see some variations, but not dark. Whereas below the equator, what do you think you're seeing? South America, Africa, India. Makes sense. But people started to migrate. People started to do trading. The Asians started to come over to the Silk Road. And then we have our Russian friends, and we have all of that area. And then we have all the Scandinavian area. And then we have the European area. And then we have all the Arab nations. It's huge. But again, I'm going to say this, we're all one and the same. True, we are. We're all one. So I don't like this divisive nonsense. But I'm going to read it for the integrity. If you understand that. But because they can mix, there we go. And because the mixture can propagate, All the races of man are now one and the same in all their organs and capabilities. Okay, it cleared itself up. Now, as previously stated, white things manufacture a white atmosphere about them, while as black things do not, being negative. The white give off or radiate light and power. The black are not radiance. The white man's radiating power coileth upon himself, and he suffereth with heat. So also with the white bear. The black man and black bear are the reverse. I get it. But it's about plasma. Anyway, wherefrom this rule will now be plain to the student. When a planet hath attained to so great age, she no longer giveth forth light or heat to radiate upon its herself. She cannot be seen in the heavens, or which kinds of planets there are millions in the Etherian firmament. Some of these move slower than any of the planets man can see. Some of these at times eclipse the sun and are taken for sunspots, although perhaps not a million miles from the earth. Some truth be told right there. Everything's within the firmament. Outside the firmament, there's more. But what we know is in the firmament. As I was talking about the heat, it not coming from the sun. That's the simulator that they have patented. Go look that up. That's a fun patent to look up. The Solar Stimulator. Boy. Like unto these in darkness are their plateau of nebula floating in the firmament, which also produce eclipses of the sun and of the moon. For convenience, let such planets and such nebulae be called dead planets and dead nebula, and that there are millions of such bodies sufficient to eclipse the sun or a star or the moon. The different periods of darkness on the earth will provide the proof. In prophesizing, estimating the tendency of a planet's approach to death, refer once more to the moon. Now the moon hath, as to the earth's face, no axial revolution, but it must be remembered that the moon cannot go around the earth without making an actual axial revolution. 70½ revolutions of the moon's vortex complete one travel around the earth's vortex. Consequently, we arrive at the exact speed of the moon's vortex and the strength of light and heat manifested on the moon. The student should make allowance for the moon's eclipse, for the light of the moon is much stronger as seen from the earth sometimes than others. Place the Simunan age at 99 degrees, the time of quickening animal life. It will be found that the moon at such period must have had an axial motion facing the earth. of 3 4/7 times faster than the Earth. Whilst at the same period of time, the Earth made its daily revolution in what would now be 21 hours and 40 minutes. This would give a difference in the animal heat or 2.5 degrees of ataxia on the Earth as compared to the simian age. Consequently, large animals, which are now extinct, have had a temperature average higher of 2.5 degrees than of present, wherein we perceive 3 hours and 17 minutes loss in axial motion produce a loss of 2.5 degrees of ataxian heat. The difference, therefore, on the moon in temperature below blood heat and what it now must be must correspond exactly with the comparative slowness, 1 revolution a month. As to the loss manifested on the Earth, now, although the student will discover the moon hath fallen to a temperature far below 0, yet emitteth both light and heat. To find the simian age, especially of man, place his temperature on 98 for good health and 102 at inflammation or death. 4 below normal will, therefore, be the period of man's inhabitation of the Earth. After the Vortexian radiation reacheth this period, man will cease to propagate and so become extinct as to the Earth. This giveth man 8 degrees of vortexia as the sum of his existence. 1 degree is equivalent to 12,760,000 radii or vocum. The serpent's coil could be 1 1/4. That is 24,000 years to the time of the completion. Thus, 12,760,000 divided by 260,000, add 1,402. 1 minus 2, I believe that looks like that. Add 24,000 times 3, 76,750 years, the time of the simian age for man. To this should be added 1 cycle of, say, 3,000 years, which was the beginning of the fall of Simiu. By revising these measurements, find the axial decrease of the Earth in 78,000 years, which will be 100 minutes or 3. There's like a dash there, I don't know. 3/40ths of a second annually, which is the Earth's decline in speed, for which reason the first of the race of man on Earth began about 78,000 years BK. Yes, no, maybe so. Weird. Chapter 6. To return to the master vortex referred to Tao Sang, there's a plate, like a picture. It is an error to say that the eye seeth the sun by means of a straight line. The line of sight to the sun is spiral and oval. But it is equally an error to say that light cometh from the sun to the earth, or to any other planet, which hath given rise to the still greater errors of computing the time of travel of light and the degree of heat of a planet by its proximity to the sun. To determine the distance of the sun from the earth, allowance must be made for the vortexian spirality. by which reason the sun is in fact some 7 million miles nearer the earth than its measure would indicate. The same rules apply to all planets save the moon. And even this is seen by means of curved lines of the Earth's vortex. As the moon's vortex rideth around and on the outer part of the Earth's vortex, we discover the elliptical course thereof. So by the roads of a comet do we discover the spirality and curve of the master's vortex. Observe a comet in different positions as it followeth the sun's vortex. When the heat of a comet falleth within the overlapping waves of the sun's vortex, the head is sometimes swallowed up and sometimes driven backward, spitting flames of fire the while. The nearer the comet approacheth in elliptic course, the longer will it live. The opposite condition applieth to hyperbolic comets, for they oft die or dissolve in one journey. If a comet can be seen today in hyperbole and in any angle of the heavens, and if in 10 years or 100 years a comet can be seen in the same place, it would be an error to say it was the same comet. It is an error to prophecy estimate the heat of Venus being more or less because of her approximation nearer the sun. There is no more heat in the master vortex in general than there is 100 miles above the earth, save and except when very near the sun's photosphere, that it is to say within 1,000 or 2,000 miles at most. There is a sun planet in the center of the photosphere, at distance interior, from 3,000 miles to 30,000 miles, and it is light all the way around. But within the body of the photosphere, there are numerous planets, some globular, some elongated and irregular. These are usually called sunspots, because when they present their negative surface toward the earth, they seem black. For the most part, these planets in the photosphere are rather external than internal. At the times they appear as spots. They have independent motions in their respective places. Wherefrom it may be said, when an unlearned man saith the sun, we know what he meaneth, but when a learned man saith the sun, we know not what he meaneth, whether the whole central group or the sun planet only. If one were to go into a circular field a little way from the middle and there construct an electric battery from which extendeth outward a multitude of wires to small batteries in distant parts of the field, his batteries would then represent somewhat the polar planets, the central one being the sun. There would be more volume of electricity manifested at the central battery, but the intensity of the spark at one of the smaller batteries would, other things being equal, be equal to the spark at the central battery. Neither is there more intensity of heat at the sun than in any electric flash. Neither must it be surmised that the sun center is an electric battery, nor that it supplieth in any sense anything to any other planet. As previously stated, there are two things, corporal and eth. The latter is the solvent of Kapor. Whirling vortexes of the solution makes planets, and these are the sum and substance of all things manifested in the universe. It is an error to say the sun threw off rings or planets. No thing hath power to throw off itself or a part thereof, save some living creature. They have instanced water flying from the periphery of a rapid rotating wheel. This would merely imply that someone was trying to fasten worlds on the sun's periphery, but that the sun cast them off. Who that someone was, they say not, nor do they offer a reason as to how such thrown off substance came to be in the way of the sun in the first place. It is equally erroneous to say that the presence of this planet or that throweth an influence on mortals, according to their birth under certain stars. It is this same astrological ignorance that attributeth to the sun the throwing off of light and the heat of possessing attraction, of gravitation, and of throwing off rings to make planets of. Men have ever sought in corporal things for the cause of this and that. He buildeth up certain tables and diagrams and calleth it science or philosophy. If on one morning he put on the left shoe first, and something happened that day, he proveth by that shoe a new philosophy. By the tides he proveth the cause of the moon, or by the moon the cause of the tides, anything under the sun that is corporal, rather than search in the subtle and potent unseen worlds. Let it be premised, then, that the Etherian firmament is not a waste and intermediable nothingness, but that, on the contrary, it is in many regions, even between the earth and the sun, sufficiently dense for a corporal man to dwell upon, and to walk about, even as on the earth. Some of these Etherian worlds are as transparent as water or clear glass, and some opaque. Some of them are large as the earth, and some 1,000 times larger. Some are as immense facsimiles of snowflakes, with the arches 1,000 miles high and broad. Some of them are as oceans of water, some transparent and some opaque, and some of them dense clouds of ash. But so great are the numbers and so vast the varieties of these thousands of millions of Etherian worlds that description is impossible. Yet by the telescopic power of the Earth's Vortexian lenses, these worlds are magnified so as to seem to be non-entities. Worlds in solution, the Etherian heavens, are therefore governed by no power in or escaping from corporeal worlds. In the language of the ancient prophets, they are a law unto themselves. And yet these unseen worlds have much power and influence on the vortices of corporeal worlds. In making observations with a spectroscope, these otherwise unseen worlds are sometimes seen, but in general way, the spectroscope revealeth only the refraction of high altitudes in the Earth's vortex. It is an error to say the spectrum divideth the sun's rays per se. It is an error to say the spectroscope hath revealed certain colors in the atmosphere or photosphere of the sun or other stars. Its revelations, for the most part, pertain to what is contained in the Vortexian lens of the earth, no matter whether the view be toward the sun or another star. Interesting. Chapter 7. Having shown the impossibility of philosophy based on corporeal knowledge to demonstrate truth in regard to unseen things, and in regard to planets distant from the earth, it becometh a part of these revelations to put the student in the way to learn from the unseen forces which govern all corporeal things, man included, as a general and important part. When a heavy stone falleth on a man, and holdeth him down, it is sufficient to say the stone ruleth over the man. If an epidemic come upon a city because of uncleanliness, it is well to consider that cause also. I'm looking at you, New York. And side note, I am so glad I don't have to commute into Manhattan anymore, because a woman got attacked by a man who put poo in her face and was let go because that's assault. And I can't tell you how many people got shot in the last 4 days. And there's carjackings. There's robberies, there's home invasions. These things always existed, but to the extent that they are happening now, I have a lot of weapons on me. Because we don't have our Second Amendment rights here. Nevertheless, if an epidemic be periodical to a certain city, even when not unclean, it is wise to prophesy as unseen cause. The same rule applieth in comparing one locality with another. In certain regions of the earth, certain diseases are common. In certain times of the earth, as to cycles of 3,000 years, certain diseases were common. In certain places of the earth, man hath at times, thousands of years ago, obtained a great knowledge and virtue, but his whole country in after centuries became a wilderness. It is not the place of a prophet to answer these things by the accusation of ignorance or war. The prophet must account for that tendency in man to fall into ignorance and into war. In other words, he must find the cause of causes. At certain periods of time for hundreds of years, nations have dwelt in peace and have risen in virtue, then turned to war within themselves and gone down in death. The prophets of old divided time into the cycles of 3,000 years with slight variations, and they found that at such periods of time, some certain impulse came upon the people, causing them to try to be better and wiser, even as the same feeling is the same day manifesting itself in many nations. The scale then riseth 400 years, more or less, and after that wars and epidemics come upon the people. They began with a decline, especially in virtue and peace, but the general intelligence suffereth little for about another 600 or 700 years. After which time they destroy their libraries and records and reduce themselves to ignorance and vice. Who burnt down the Library of Alexandria? Gosh, I don't know. The people who want to dominate the earth so that the everyday common man can't get knowledge that the man deserves to know it. War, divisive division. Not good. Then followeth a darkness of 1,000 or more years, with slight intermissions. In other 600 years, the corporal senses, intellect, begin to ascend. Self-conceit cometh upon them. They think they are the beginning of wisdom on earth. Then cometh another cycle of light. Angels descend from the unseen worlds. New revelations crop up in every quarter. Inspiration cometh upon mortals, and they go to the opposite extreme, superstition and obedience to unseen influences. Such then is the general character and behavior of man during a cycle, and he riseth and falleth in these particulars, and regularly as the tides of the ocean. That man may begin to comprehend these things and learn to classify them as to rise in wisdom and virtue, and thus overcome these seasons of cycles. Thus revelations are chiefly made. I say a word enough, they're probably going to take this video off. So I'm going to skip that word, but we know what I'm talking about. As previously shown, there are positive and negative forces forever going to and escaping from the earth. Without these, no creature could live on the earth. The negative imparteth to man his corporal growth and corporal desires, passions, and so on. According to the corporeal solutions in the firmament and their precipitations to the earth, as to quantity and quality, so man be affected and inclined to manifest. See? These influences are easily discernible by some persons. One is depressed by a dull day, another inclined to drunkenness and fighting. By a bright day, man is inspired to energy. Now, what did they do? What did they do to us? A suit is so susceptible to the vortexian currents. He can realize the qualities of a medicine while it is yet in a glass bottle by merely holding it in his hand, or know the character of the writer of a letter by holding the letter in his hand. Yet all this accomplished by the vortexian current of the article in question. These revelations, however, are not in reference to individuals, but to nations and peoples in periods of time, embracing hundreds of years and thousands of years. It is an error to say that whilst the corporeal worlds are organized with fixed orbits and uses, the unseen worlds are nothing, or at best not organized. They are organized with orbits, places, forms, figures, and so on, as definitively as are the corporeal worlds. Their times and seasons are regular and well provided. In the passage of the earth, it is its own roadway. It goeth amongst the ethereal and atmospheric worlds regularly, so that the periods of inspiration and periods of darkness are not haphazard. It is not the purpose of these revelations to work out prophecies, leaving nothing for a man to do, but to call his attention to the unseen forces that rule on the earth, and show him the way to make the prophecies himself. The student will draw a curved line representing the travel of the great serpent for 3,000 years. This shall be cut across in 8 places to represent the periods of light. The places between them shall be made dark and light according to the history of man's behavior during said 3,000 years. War shall be represented by black. The duration of war shall be marked with a cut called change. Numbers shall designate the degrees of historical manifestations. For every great division of the earth, make one. I'm not pronouncing that word. I'm not even going to attempt that word. Here it is for you who can. ORACHNEBUAHGLGALAH. Not doing it. The scale should be from 1 to 1,000 for the entire length, and from 1 to 1,000 from one dawn to another, and from 1 to 1,000 for each and every characteristic designated. Number man 1 and 33, and the moon 1 and 18, and number the earth 1 and 365. These were called by the ancients the grades of 1,000. So encenti. These periods will be found to come under certain numbers: 11, 33, 66, 99, 100, 200, 400, 666, 333, 66, 18, 500, 600, 365, 99, 33, 18, and so on. Not that the numbers are such having anything to do with such matters. Thus, the moon's time is 18, the earth's 365, a generation 33, Dan 200, 400, 600, 500, nitrogen or darkness 6, 66, and 666, and so on. For which reason, the following tables of times and measurements are established. And there is this huge page with a bunch of stuff on it. Huge. So with this next chapter, I definitely have to code some of these words, because it's still like apparent today that if you speak some of these terms, okay, so just bear with me, okay? Let ETH stand as 1, Ja'e as 2, Jai as 3, and Kapor as 4. To ETH give motion 199, as the case may be. To Kapor give 0, and that is no motion of itself. To Ja'e give 66, to Jai give 33. ETH being the time of light is named Dan. Ja'e, the time of beavers, and epidemics, plagues, and J, the time of wars, dashing forth with power and grasping me, the earth being the subject. There is still another period to all corporeal worlds, Lutz. In the same time of Lutz, they are fallen on planet condensed earthly substances as clay, stones, ash, molten metals, disseminated, and so on, in such great quantities that it can be compared to snowstorms, piling up corporeal substances on the planet, on the earth, in places to a depth of many feet, and drifts in hundreds of feet. Lutz were by some ancient prophets called Uz. There's that word again. Emerald tablets, and Numelish, because it was a time of destruction. If Lutz followed soon after Simeon period, when portions of the earth were covered with simu and rank vegetation, it charred them, penetrating and covering them up. Thus were made, for the most part, the coral beds and oil beds in the earth. Lutz belongeth more to an early age of a planet, when its vortex is more extended, and when the nebulous clouds in the outer belt are subject to condensation, so as to rain down on the earth these corporeal showers. The time of Dan is the opposite of this, and although it is the time of spirituality amongst mortals, and the time of prophecy and inspiration, yet it is the time the earth is rapidly giving off its life force and its moisture rapidly growing old. Consequently, the two most important periods for the prophet's consideration come within 33 and 66, or as of old said, man and beast, in which measure man is divided into two parts, man and beast. And there is ever a percentage in his behavior inclining to one or the other, and they correspond to vortexian currents on the earth. The student must not consider merely individuals, but nations and peoples belonging to continents, and the relationship that cometh of G or Dan as their percentage must have reference to such nations or peoples as manifest to its influence. Thus suppose a grade to run below 33, but not as low as 22, and such a people fall under a jive for a period of 66 years, or even more. War, destruction, death, and lust, ooh baby, will come upon that people. But suppose the same fall of G came upon a people graded above a 33 to 66, war and intellect will auditorily, music and remarkable men of genius will result. But to carry it still further, the same fall of G coming on a people above 66, they will manifest in multitudes lords, gods, and saviors, and in superstitions, rites, and ceremonies, which will all more or less pertain to sexualisms. The prophet is thus enabled to determine by the vortexian currents the rise and fall of nations, and to comprehend how differently even the same showers and shadows of the unseen worlds will affect different people. And the same will apply in the manifestation of Dan, according to the grade of a people, so will they receive its light. If below 33, they will become magicians and prophets without virtue. If above 33, but below 66, they will become self-opinionated malefactors, running into licentiousness for self's sake. But if above 66, they will become true prophets, abnegating self for sake of righteousness. Yes and no. Let the students compare the faiths of Kaplaya in India with the Chaldeans of the same country, and the faiths of Moses in Egypt with the Egyptians of the same country. The faiths of both countries advanced, but their persecutors both went down to destruction. The peace of the faiths held 400 years, and then both people began to choose kings, which was followed by 990 years of darkness. So that whether the vortexes show approaching light or approaching darkness, the prophet must bear in mind the grades of peoples. Any given light amongst mortals as to the past will show the data of its occurrence, whilst the heavy lights will equally foreshadow what will come upon any people. No wonder why we've all been in darkness. Now we're getting the light. It is not sufficient for man to know how to prophesy, but to learn how to overcome the elements of his surroundings. Previously set forth, there are religions of death on the earth, which man must learn to overcome by causing rains to fall. He shall provide explosive gases high up in the air, which shall break the wind currents, establishing vortexes from the upper regions downward. And when a sickness is prophesied to a city, man shall dissipate the falling Simu and thus save it from destruction. the or flesh with poison to save it from poison is to use the battle axe of Satan. Man shall learn the higher law to save by virtue instead of vice. If this book was actually acknowledged in like every day, I would have quoted this on my religious exemption. And if I would have known how to make a religious order, I would have. That wouldn't have done anything in New York, but it has for other states who uphold the Constitution, by the way. Not the corporate one, the Republic one. As to the grades, the student is referred to the Book of East. Prophecy is not guesswork. Absolute rules govern all things. A few individuals in a nation or of a people are a small matter. Nor must a prophet swerve one jot or title by the pretensions of a people, as for example, the Brahmins, the Buddhists, and the Mohammedans, and the Christians all profess faith in their respective gods and saviors, but their professions are false. Their faith is in soldiers and standing armies and in implements of destruction. The prophet must not, therefore, suffer himself to hearken to individual explanations. He must grade them in their entirety, whether they manifest below 33 or above 66, without regard to pretensions. When the student hath completed his tables of that really long word, but the history of the period and taken the measure of grades of the different nations and peoples of earth, he will find that he can not only foretell the future, but he can discover the past history for an equally long period of time. And when he hath thus completed 2 cycles, he can find a third and then a fourth, and so on, until all the past history of the earth is delivered up to his understanding. The same force vortexia pervadeth the entire universe, but differently according to volume, velocity, and configuration. As previously shown, colors are not substances or things, in fact, but records of currents of vortexia, and are in proportion to their deviation from linear to adverse parallelism. These fall under the divisor or multiple 3 primaries, yellow, blue, and red, corresponding to the times 11, 33, 99, and so on. The same rule was applied by the ancient prophets in music, making 3 primary sounds, E, O, I, H, the words of the wind, but giving all other sounds to the beast, which 66, which supposed to cover the number of sounds from the lowest bass to the highest treble that could be procured from the animal creation. And thus ranges of sounds are manifest in men, whether singing or talking, according to the kind of vortexian currents that fall upon a country and the grade he beholdeth in resurrection. So that even a whole people in one country would utter sounds higher or lower than in another country, some through the teeth, some in the throat, and yet others through the nose. Sounds as in music are not substance, but currents of air in motion, which register their broken discharges on the drum of the ear, so that it is possible for the ear to be so cultivated that it can detect these velocities, so as to determine colors thereby. For of a truth, in entity sounds and colors are one and the same thing, but registered one on the eye and one on the ear. In other words, the two organs of sense discover the same thing differently. To one, it is music, to the other, it is color. If a man be given to revere because of music or color, his soul traveleth in the currents thereof, and he becometh oblivious to his surroundings. The vortexian currents in that case pass through him uninterruptedly. If one instrument in a room be played upon, and another instruments in the same room be in tune, therewith the currents of vortexia will cause the others to give off sounds faintly. If said instruments be connected by wood fibers, and the sounds will be louder. If the person in revere holdeth the hands of others in a room, the same current will run through the whole. Hence, music is the greatest of harmonizers. A person may be a great lover of music, but be so discordant in his disposition as not to enter the ecstatic state of revere. Another person may not know how to sing 3 notes, but have so concordant a disposition that he is at once carried into ecstasy by music, or by colors, or by viewing the great harmonies of creation. The true prophet is such a hath attained accordance. The vortexian currents of any and everything pass through him. He seeth and feeleth with his soul. He is a perpetual register of everything near at hand. And if he cultivate his talents so as to estimate results therefrom, the future and the past are as an open book to him. That which is erroneously called instinct in animals is capacity to be moved by the positive and negative vortexia. Where the positive and negative currents equal in duration, the sexes born in the world would be equal in number. Males are the manifestation of positive vortexia and females negative. The more positive the female, the less fruitful. But the opposite of this is male's power. Herb food for men cultivateth the negative condition. Flesh food for men increaseth the positive, which is to say, flesh food carrieth man away from prophecy, away from spirituality. A nation of meat eaters will always culminate in disbelievers in spirituality, and they become addicted to corporal passions. Such men cannot understand. To them, the world is vanity and vexation. If poor, if rich, a place to revel in for lust's sake. Let the prophet steer clear of them, nor marry with them, nor have anything in common with them. For though a man learn all the motions of and powers of the corporal world, his information is still but a drop of water compared to the ocean, when measured by the seer and prophet that seeth the atmospheric and etherian worlds. I'm not touching the food thing with the 10-foot pole here. Chapter 10, and then it ends with a little read off. So this isn't that much further along. Very interesting. It is not the part of this book to deal with spiritual matters, only so far as enableth the student to begin etheric knowledge. First, then, there are 2 kinds of prophecy, or 2 ways to prophesize. For example, the ant and the bee and many animals prophesy in regard to an approaching winter. Even birds begin to fly toward tropical regions while it is yet warm weather. These creatures prophesy.
Alert from software update.
I don't know, guys. I don't know if you heard that, but if you have, is there a way I could shut that thing down? Because I tried several different techniques, went through all different things, and all this guy does is interrupt everything that I do all day. And no matter what, and no matter what video someone points me to how to shut that off, it interrupts. constantly. So I do apologize if you heard that, because I sure did, and it was really annoying. I cannot wait for everything to switch over to a good system that's not so annoying, that is not evil. Evil. These creature prophecy for the direct action of Vortexian currents upon them. They feel what is approaching because the unseen cause is already upon them. Man can learn to acquire the same kind of prophecy. And this is different from the prophecy herein before mentioned, because he prophesies it in this last method without rules or calculations. To obtain this kind of prophecy, the following discipline is requisite: to live in the fields and forests and study the action of unseen forces upon himself, to eat not fish, nor flesh, nor any food that cometh of animals, to breathe daily, to permit no passion to enter his mind, to abnegate self and to wed himself to the Creator for righteousness' sake, and to do good, to discipline his mind, to remain in any given direction on any subject for days if necessary, to become oblivious to pain, after which he shall receiveth anointment from one who had previously obtained the seership. To obtain such prophecy is to forfeit sexual powers, to forfeit appetite, to forfeit ambition for leadership, fame, to forfeit concern for the opinions of the world, in fact, to become a bridegroom or bride to the Creator. Not all persons can obtain to this, but some are born closely allied to it. There is also another kind of prophecy wherein man's prophesieth by spirits speaking through him. This is dangerous, for lying spirits may come to him. Truth, to it a certain extent, because it's all of Creator. The bad, the good, the ugly, all cometh from the Creator. Spirit speaks through me every day. Not the evil, only of the light. Again, I don't agree with everything this book says. Rather let man seek to become one with the Father, making close observation of the rules of the Vortexia, for in this he approveth for the development of his faculties. Chapter 11, Rules in College of Prophecy. The following signs are given in the words, to wit: flag, rising sun, salute the east, children of dawn. The signs are: first, the whole folded hands; second, the soothe; and third, the supplication. O thou setting sun, respond in Jehovah's name. How many chiefs dwell in dawn? Response: 3 or more. How stationed, O thou high noon? Response: the 3 lights are east, west, and south. The smoke and fire rise from the altar. Here followeth the secondary in the chamber above. The voice of the east: how are the lines of living fire? O noon? Response: as the sun, which is the light of the corporeal earth, riseth in the east to adorn the day, and ascendeth to the south at high noon, as the glory thereof, and setteth in the west, so the remembrance of Jehovah. Our stations, the representatives of a lodge of dawn. What is dawn? 3 years or more at the youth of a cycle. The students then presenteth their tables, and college is declared open in the words, in Jehovah's name. Give ear to the voice. With Moses and Kaplitha, both the above were merged into one lodge. The second began the flag at high noon. O thou fire of heaven, how many chiefs mark the altar of Jehovah? 4 or more. Thou setting sun, speak. How stand the Father? Response: my hand shield the light of the all-seeing eye. I'm gonna have to sage myself after this. Yep. So guys, for the sake of my own sanity, I'm not reading the rest of this passage. Because it's I'm not no. This passage, even though this is of Jehovah and all of good, this is seen in not so good verses in scripture of the other side, put it that way. And I've seen this before, and the language in itself, not reading it. Nope. No. So I do apologize. Evil. And I really don't care what your opinion, like, I care what your opinion is, but I don't, like, I'm not putting myself in harm's way by uttering words that are, even though your intention is of love and light, I'm trying to protect my energy. And I refuse to speak some of these words. The beast is mentioned in here a lot of a bunch, and dominions, and numbers, and just things that the like four corners, like a lot of illuminated things that are of the evil other side, who probably stole this and made it for them, but it's still spell casting. And I'm not speaking this. Moving on. There is no such thing as separating science and religion. To obtain knowledge and to do good, these are valuable. Without discipline, knowledge cannot be obtained. Truth. Without discipline, little good can be accomplished. Forms and ceremonies must accompany discipline, otherwise in harmony cometh all. These are religion. To be not puffed up with self-conceit, and to be willing to become good, these are foundations for good profit. But in all gifts, the rules of prophecy should apply. If a man be gifted in music, he should study music and not rely wholly on inspiration, the Vortexian tide. If gifted in healing, he should study and learn to apply the researches of others and not to rely wholly on the Vortexian currents. If the gifted in prophecy, he should also learn the rules of vortexes and planets, the combination of gifts. With good learning, this is the highest. He that healeth by laying on of hands only giveth off the vortexia he hath previously received. Let him see to it that he replenish himself by sunlight, so called, and trees and herbs and ground to work upon. For giving away without replenishing will soon result in nothing. It's true. As a young child sleeping with a very old person loseth its vortexia, becoming emancipated, or as negative husband is devoured by a positive wife, or a negative wife devoured by a positive husband, so is the prophet consumed by the multitude. Ew. When a prophet hath attained to discharge vortexia, as to make raps at will, he is also subject to the presence of people from the unseen worlds, and these people, spirits or angels, are this vortexia for foundation of Sargeras. The ancient prophet caused the worshippers to sit in the dark, because all people give off the negative current in the dark, which they receive as positive in the light, and bade them to sit in crescent, while he sat betwixt the horns. Again, why? Therefore, the decrees of the prophet were called Tau. In this form of the altar, the prophet was supplied somewhat with vortexia by the audience. I don't agree with that. And altars and all kinds of stuff. Cometh to this, vortexia is unseen power. Loosh to the evil shits. Loosh, that's what it's called. When you're in fear, that's the energy you give off. Vortexia is unseen power. It is without sense or judgment. Next back of this standeth the life of every living thing. And next back of all standeth the Creator, Jehovah. All learning, science, and religion are but far off stepping stones to lead man to him. To acknowledge this and to call on him consistently is to keep open the road to receive his hand and hear his voice. Very interesting, from chapter 5 to 11. It's a good perspective for the most part, besides that end part, which sounded like spellcasting to me and told me to stop. Usually I'll read what's there, but when you project something out loud, I am not trying to project anything negative on anybody else. So that's a real big reason why I didn't do that. If you have read this book and have read that chapter and you've read that passage and you find it to be of a good nature, that's fine. And I'm not judging, but within me, my being knowing and all of that won't let me do it. So I do apologize for that, but I don't want to do anything or say something that will affect anybody here, because I love all of you guys. I do. And I appreciate everybody. So if I'm making a judgment call based on what I read there, and I've seen it in other places of not nice, kind books in my research. So I hoped you enjoyed. That was the entirety of Cosmogony and Prophecy. Interesting view. Doesn't resonate, that's okay. A lot of that did not, the last part did not resonate with me. Some things were yes, others no. But that's okay. That's me, not you. So take what resonates. I hope you enjoyed this finishing off of Cosmogony and Prophecy as you watch my little one sleep. Poor thing, I'm trying to find holistic medicine for her. Haven't found it in the store. I went today to look. Not much. She's cranky pants in the morning. So I'm happy she's sleeping now while I'm reading. But please send some prayers and healing energy to her. You know, my whole thing is if she's going to pass away, she's going to do so. And I'm going to be happy that she is going to become a human. Her soul's going to go up to third density. And I hope that I, as a human being, gave her all the love and unconditional love and support that she needed while her little tiny life has been here, holds a higher purpose for her in the next life. I just don't want her to be in pain. I already had to see it with both parents, even though I'm always in pain. So mind you. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. It doesn't necessarily need to be this section. It could be anything that I put up. Just help to get my work out there and shared, because a lot of people are now starting to find me. So something is working. So I thank everybody. Sending you love and light. If you can help me out in any capacity, all my information will be linked down below. Thank you for all your comments. I enjoy them and love seeing them, and emails too. Bye, guys.